Hello everyone, Reggie Time here. We're with Owain again. No long intros. Rowan, I've seen your graph for the last week while you were messing around like picking the hands, and it looks like you've had a good week, Square.
Yeah, I've been winning. I've been really pleased. I've done a few. You'll remember last time, I had a few things that I needed to change. Like I didn't have the auto top up
Yep,
working, which I'll be honest, I think that is a massive help because I was playing two tables at a time last week, and I decided to up it to. I'm playing four tables at a time now, and I just think it's changed quite a few things. Obviously the auto top, it means I don't have to blooming be messing around with that anymore. And I feel like um I'm not getting involved. Like a few of the hands that we've played previously, I'd get quite frustrated, or I'd get into a bit of a mental. A player on a table might irritate me a bit if he'd raised me a couple of times.
yep.
And I feel like when I'm playing four tables, I've been doing it now for quite a few days. It doesn't happen at all because I'm just completely thinking about the hand in isolation. And yeah, it's going well. I feel like I'm playing well. You will find out I've got some dodgy hands here, mine. So don't worry, there's some stuff to talk about. But yeah, I feel like it's going really well.
Excellent. Well, let's get fired up then and see what's happening. Your HUD looks pissed to me. I've no idea what any of it fucking mean. D7, 3D6,
Um,
3F51. I mean, what's that fucking Star Wars episode?
yes.
What the fuck
Right.
do they all mean?
It's because
Ah,
I
donk, right,
needed
okay.
donk, float, um, donk a three bet pot, float a three bet pot, and that's on the turn. And then that's when how often do they donk the turn? Same thing basically.
Probe. Okay,
Turn,
right.
turn
Okie
probe,
dokie.
turn for. For some reason I haven't got the probe on the flop, but it's because I couldn't fit them all in.
That's because you can't
I'm
probe
still
flops.
working on it. Yeah, yeah. I'm
Probing
still.
flops is actually important because a probe bet is when the imposition player who had the pre-flop initiatives check the previous street, and then like so. For example, you raise the button, you check back flop, then the blind leads into you on the turn. That's a probe. So it's impossible to probe the flop. You can only donk flops. You can't probe them. Anyway, that's by
Yeah,
the by.
gotcha.
That's just a fucking nerdy thing.
Oh,
Let's get cracking
no.
and see what happens.
Well, I learned something there because I thought a probe. Actually thought that a probe and a donk were the same thing.
No, a turn
Um,
donk is
but
just say you see bet the flop, and then they bet the turn. That's a donk. If you check back the
yeah, yeah,
flop and they bet the turn, that's a probe.
yeah. I saw that. I was reading through the description in Poker Tracker. Anyway, but yeah, that's okay. Right. So, shall I start the hand?
Absolutely.
Right. The action. I'm under the gun with King Queen. Raised. Shall I just carry on?
Yep.
Raised under the gun with King Queen. What happens? They fold. Big blind calls. Okay.
Yep.
It's on me.
Check. Well, what do you think you should do?
Yeah. I've got top pair. That's kind of the board I was hoping for.
Yeah.
He can call me with lots of stuff. Flush draws, straight draws,
We've
worse
got an
queens.
enormous range advantage here. It's just an
Yeah.
absolute mandatory bet.
And the sizing then is what you're going to ask me, isn't it?
Yep.
I would say three quarters pot.
Um. Yeah. Why not? I mean, it. I think we can go on some like different sizes here. I think like against a reg, probably we don't need to go as big. Because we're going to be wanting to bet quite a lot of our range on this board against a whopper like this, where we're not going to be range betting. We're just going to be probably doing an awful lot of value betting. Then the occasional draw. We won't have many draws on this board. We'll have the occasional nut flush draw. We'll have the
Yep.
occasional like open ender or something like that. Gut shot. So yeah, against a weaker player here, which this guy definitely is, I would just go big. Yeah, just big. And by big, I mean anything like 2/3 pot through to. You could even potentially think about overbetting here against a player this bad.
Okay. Let's see what I do. Three quarters.
Nice.
Okay. He calls. The board pairs. The board
So now
pairs.
what then? What? It's just a good
Um,
card for us.
No,
No.
it's not. It's not. His flushes get there, um, which I am obviously aware of, but he might not have a flush. The only thing that I think I should bet again because I don't, the reason I think I should bet again is because he might have what can he have that would the problem is the worst hands than us would fold, I think. That's the problem.
Not
A lot of
necessarily.
them.
If he's got ace 10 off with the club, that's not folding. If he's got
Yes,
king 10,
yeah.
that's not folding. So I don't necessarily think like all worst hands fold, but like what we need to think about here is like how much equity do you think we have
Against his range.
against his range for calling?
Um I think we've got a decent amount of equity against his range. Um because the only part of his range that's overtaken us is well, in my opinion, unless he's got a five, he could have a five, I suppose, but there's
He
not
could
many
very
fives.
easily. There's loads of fives because he's 66-8.
No, that's true. Yeah, yeah, that's true.
There's a
Yeah, yeah,
there's there's an abundance of fives.
yeah. He
And
could
he called the flop
easily
with
have.
something, didn't he? This is my issue here. Because I think you're like maybe overvaluing your hand here. Yeah, we probably there's a good chance we still do have the best hand. But the flush draw's got down the flop, which he definitely has some of those, and 5x has improved. So like this is a significantly better card for Villain than it is us because we don't have any 5x or very
Yeah,
little. You know, we have like two
no,
combos of ace 5 suited. We obviously have full houses, queens full, jacks full. Um,
I think if I had a
Flushes.
five,
We
yeah,
do we have
if
flushes? Yeah, we have some. We have like
yeah,
all
but
limit
only
flushes, I
ace
guess.
king in it. That's
King
it, I
10 of
think.
clubs as well. We have that. 10 9 of clubs maybe. So we do have some flushes, but overall, even though we still got top pair good kicker, I think our hand's gone down quite a lot in value from the flop. And I'm torn because this guy's so fishy. I'm torn between continuing to bet to get value from his single clubs, to get value from his worst top pairs, to get value from some Jack X, etc. But another part of me is like, well, this board can still change quite significantly. We don't have a particularly strong. I'm a top pair good kicker. The board can change a lot on the river. You know, there can be, any nine, any jack, any king, any ace changes the nuts. A club changes the board as well. Um, so it's like our hand isn't super fucking robust, and I think we can sometimes get a little bit worried about like wanting to protect our hand too much here, and end up just putting too much money in. I actually think this hand probably wants to check back at a decent frequency, and then if it checks again on the river and the river doesn't change anything, just go for like a healthy bet. If we bet here and we get raised, we just have to fold.
Yeah, I agree
Um,
with that.
because we just don't beat any value whatsoever, or we beat so little value. And yeah, fine, he might have the occasional bluff, but what can we do about it with like top pair, not even top kicker, and no redraw? There's just nothing we can do about it. I actually think we should probably just
Mm.
just check back here, and then seek some more value on the river if it checks to us. But I have a feeling you're going to bet, which is fine when he just calls, but it's problem when he gets raised. And if he just call here,
Yeah,
how many comfortable river value bets are we going to have? I think this. I think our hand doesn't really want to put any more money in the pot on this street, in my opinion.
I think you're right. I, if I bet and he raises, really his value is just the flushes and fives, right?
You would imagine so, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. With his, obviously, with this player, if it was you, I don't think he's got jacks very often, and I obviously block queens. But you would think he has a five, or he's made his flush.
Yeah, but I wouldn't rule out pocket jacks either because these players are so
Mm.
passive. Now, pocket now. Don't get me wrong. Pocket jacks does check raise the flop sometime. Probably
Yeah,
quite often. But
because of the flush draw.
I wouldn't totally rule it out. But yeah,
Okay.
I'm not worried about having pocket jacks. But we can't completely rule it out because I play in these pools as well, and these 68-8 types, these like high VPIP, very low PFR types, they just don't three bet either. So who knows? The guy might just have pocket kings here for all we fucking know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he
Or
didn't
pocket
free
aces. These people just don't like three betting. They just love to trap. Don't have to trap it. I don't know what they're doing, but there's lots of players in these pools, and unless you
all
played
with
them,
aces and kings.
you've
Yeah.
not, you just can't understand just how like quite often it happens. There's loads of players in this pool. I got like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hand samples on, and they're like 72-0 with the 0% three bet, and they've got the lot in their flying range: aces, kings, ace, king, everything. So you do walk into the occasional landmine against these players. And I just think at this point we don't have a value bet, and if we do, it's thin. Whereas on the river, if the river just rolls off the deuce of diamonds, he checks again, then we could just make a
Mm,
nice healthy value bet, and he's going to call us with an absolute shit ton of bluff catches. We don't
okay.
really have a three street hand anymore, so there's no real urgency to bet our hand here, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that there's no value in protecting it against another club coming.
Well, we can't protect against the club coming because he's going to call anyway, so we don't get protection. We get value from a flush
I'm with you.
draw,
Yeah, yeah,
but we
yeah,
don't
yeah.
get any
Okay.
protection from it.
Yeah. No, because he's just going to call. I got
Yeah,
you.
unless he's
Okay. Yeah.
got a hand like, who knows what fucking, God knows what. It's just some random fucking, if he's got like, I don't fucking know what he could even have, but some random single club hand that's floated to flop. So he's got maybe Jack
Ace
7
Jack
offsuit.
off or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or even that Jack 7 offsuit with the 7 of clubs. You know, yeah, he can have some single club hands, but I'm just not that. I don't like. Oh, I'm going to bet to protect against draws. It doesn't work. People call with draws, so you're not getting any protection whatsoever. When we're talking about protection betting, we're usually just trying to get people to fold bits of equity that can't call. So protection
Yeah.
bet
Yeah.
would be, you've got pocket nines on a 8 high flop, and you're not protecting against like any draws you might have, but you just want to fold out ace 10, things like that.
Yeah.
Hands that have got two overcards or even just one
Yeah.
overcard. So we could just bet small and have them fold out, like 20, 25% equity quite frequently. That's what I think about protection. And when I think someone's got a draw, so they've got like 30% plus equity, I'm not thinking about protecting against that because they're not going to fold a draw. I'm thinking more about protecting against little bits and pieces of equity that they have that they're just going to under defend. That's when I talk about protection. So, I'm trying to make someone fold ace 7 on 8xx because I've got, pocket nine or something like that. That's the sort of thing I'm like, right, just fold your ace. I can bet 1/3 pot, and hopefully you're going to overfold like your one or even two overcard combos that have got anything from like 15 to 25% equity. That's the sort of protection bet I think we should be looking to make, and not
Okay.
like trying to make people fold draws because I don't fold draws, you don't fold draws, so why the fuck's a 68-8 going to fold a draw?
Yeah.
They're not going
Okay.
to.
Okay. Right. Well, I'm pretty sure I bet. Let's see. I might not have. Oh no, I checked it back.
Excellent.
Okay. Right.
Oh, but very nice.
Yeah. Time to stick your seatbelt on, mate. Right. Um. Obviously, I think I've got the best hand
Well,
now.
let's see what he does first.
Yeah. Oh, it's not me yet. Sorry, mate. There you go.
Oh, overbet. Oh well.
Now I check back the turn. So when I see him bet 20, an overbet, the most likely thing he's got, actually, thinking about this, is he's got a queen as well.
Yep.
The hands that beat me, he could basically pocket fives and queen jack, and that's it. Even jacks have overtaken now. Um, um, he's overbet. The problem I've got is, would he do this with a flush? Right now, I think at the time, because I checked back the turn, I thought he would.
He could overbet a flush or a double paired board. I agree he might bet a flush. But when someone overbets, now this player might
Yeah.
not be that type of player, but
Yes.
typically when people overbet, they're saying, I've either got an incredibly good hand or I've got nothing. That's what an overbet is meant to signify. Now there are some people
Yes.
who randomly merge overbets, usually the fish.
Oh.
Sometimes they can be incredibly good players who are like they've got a relatively weak made hand, but they just think whatever for whatever reason they can get paid an overbet. So
Mm.
I think this is quite interesting from our perspective because like I think there's a good chance you're going to jam here. And his calling range is going to be chops, maybe just 5x call, maybe people don't fold full houses, and try to figure out if there's any way to not raise this hand.
Would he call with a five?
Yeah, I'd imagine he
Would
would.
he call with a five?
I would
That's
think
what
so.
I thought.
68
Yeah.
eights, yes, probably. Um,
And the other thing is, would he call with a flush, an ace flush? I
I
don't think
don't
he'd call with a
think
low
so.
flush.
I don't think a flush would call. Not on a double paired, but it's just too easy. Even the biggest muppet can see that they just lose to a single queen here. Um,
And they lose to a five, I suppose. Yeah, but so
so do I
if
want
I
to jam?
raise, I'm saying I've got a queen, aren't I?
When we raise versus overbet, theoretically we're saying we've got quads when we raise versus
Okay.
overbet. You know, because
Even
like
okay, even against him.
well, just theoretically in general, when we
I'm with you,
raise
yeah.
a river versus an overbet, we're saying we've got the absolute immortal nuts, and we don't
Mm.
have the immortal nuts here. In fact, we lose to queen jack as you pointed out. We lose to we lose to pocket fives, and we chop with all these queen x. I'm just trying to think: is there any value in raising, or do we just fucking make a really nitty call? Because like we literally, I think the only thing we get value from is like his 5x, and he might even fold that sometimes. Hmm.
I've messed this up, mate.
I
I
mean, this seems
I
bonkers. If he'd bet smaller, I'd be raising in a heartbeat. I wouldn't even be
yeah.
thinking twice about it. But he hasn't. He's fucking overbet, and that is fish don't overbet.
It's
Fish
unusual
don't
for
do
him to
this.
do that. Yeah,
So I
okay.
just think we're going to chop this a lot and why pay more rake. That's like I think like it's too not too thin because he maybe calls it 5x, but I think the vast majority of the time this is going to go chop chop. But maybe sometimes he has queen jack. Maybe once in a fucking blue moon he has quad fives. When we jam and he calls, we either chop or lose nearly always. And then when we chop, we just pay a load of rake, a load of more rake than we need to. I, maybe I'm a fucking nit, and maybe the people in the comments, not that we get many comments, but maybe anyone does comment or anyone's watching, will be like, "Fuck off, Reg. It's an easy jam," and maybe it is, but I would just call here because of the rake factor, and because of the fact that the guy's overbet and we don't have the nuts. So I don't really want to jam versus overbet when I don't have the nuts. So I'm just gonna call you like a fucking filthy nit.
This is why you're much better than me at poker, mate. Your seatbelt needs to stay on because it ain't finished yet.
I didn't think it
I
would be, given you've
no,
tagged it. Okay.
yes. So I raise,
So why haven't we
yeah.
raised him all in then? If we're gonna raise, why have we left
Well,
44 behind?
because I'm an idiot. That's why. This is um. I should have raised. If I was playing this hand again, I well now we've talked it through. I probably would call myself, but I think if before we'd spoken, I would have gone all in. Um, I didn't. Yeah, I wanted to get caught by a worse hand basically, and I've been a bit of a wimp with my size in there, but I mean,
I mean, if he's got a hand that can call this
he's
raise,
gonna call it all, is
he's
he?
gonna call it all. I
Yes.
mean, I think this. We've already gone through. I think this is too thin. I think like too often we just chop the pot or want to lose, and only very rarely do we win. I mean, he's maybe is more than enough to not give a fuck and flick it in with the flush. If we think he's calling a flush here, then this is fine. Like
That was
some of
my
the all
thought.
in is fine. If we think he's
Yeah.
calling a flush, then fine. I have no problem with this. I personally don't think people call flushes on double paired boards, but if anyone's gonna, it's gonna be someone playing 68 fucking 8. My issue is the overbet, and I can't get away from it.
Yeah. No,
The
you're right.
68
Yeah.
slash 8 as overbet, and to me that is a huge
Red flag.
indication that
Yeah.
they've got at least a queen.
Yeah.
Which, and if they've got a queen, then we don't win the pot ever outright. If they hadn't overbet, I'd be way more on board with raising. I'm just not on board
So
with this, I'm afraid.
basically, if we chop, I'm actually losing money by putting more money in because I'm paying rake, aren't I?
You're paying even
Is
more,
that
Rick, yeah.
yeah? So like, this is something that I have never thought about before because I have always played for chips, if you like, sit and go
Yeah,
with chips or spin. It's a new thing to me, and I've got to start thinking about it more. So basically, if we chop when I put in 20 compared to if we chop when I jam, I'm actually worse off
yeah, it's
by
costing you
jamming.
probably like 3 or 4 big blinds, 100. It's costing you a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's fair enough. Yeah,
Well,
I
to
didn't
be fair,
even
ignore
factor
what I
that
said
in.
there because I could be wrong, but it's costing you a lot. Let me put it that way. If it's always
Yeah,
going to be a chop or a defeat, but just bet him if he just literally has a pure chop here. If he's somehow his hands face up and it's just going to be a chop, um,
I've never
don't try
factored,
and make
but
him fold the chop.
there's a
And
high proportion of of chops here, though, isn't there?
that there's got to be
Uh,
because he's over at the river. That just has to.
Yeah,
He just has to have like because he's 68-8. He's got infinite like. I know there's not much Queen X left because we know where three of the queens are, but he's got loads of Queen X in his range. That check call flop, and then overbets this river. Um, yeah, I think this is a mistake, fella. I think.
it's huge. It's huge. It's a huge mistake. Now,
And even worse now is when he jams his queen and we have to call even more, and it costs us even more in fucking rake.
no, I'm with you. I hadn't even thought about that until you just said I've got to think about it. Whenever I enter a pot this week, every time I've entered it, I have asked myself, do I want to pay rake on this hand? And I think it's helped me quite a lot because I've never thought of it like that before. But post flop, I haven't been thinking like that. Right, one sec. There you go.
You better hope you're chopping, aren't you? You better hope you're chopping, Squire.
Well, I ain't. If I remember, he's got Queen Jack, I think. Why is it not coming?
It will in a minute. Keep
Oh,
clicking
because I
through.
called. Yeah, yeah, I do. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I
There you
mean,
go.
yeah, whatever. I mean, it's unfortunate, but we
Yeah,
lost more than we needed to. We should always lose some
yeah.
more money in that pot, but we
Yeah,
don't need to lose a whole stack, in my opinion,
I,
against that
I
player
didn't.
type.
I don't think that was like your standard cooler because there was quite a lot of things that I didn't think of there, especially the rake thing. I didn't
Yeah,
even consider that on the when I was chucking all that money in
it's a
because
cooler
such
when
a
you
huge.
just call a river. That's a cooler, but you just make matters worse by doing what you did after that.
Yeah, well, oh yeah, well because a queen is such a big part of his range. Even if I am chopping, I'm kind of setting many on fire, aren't I? Because
No,
I'm
you
just
have to
giving.
call. You can't fold because if you go back to the
No, I,
river when he bets, we can't just fold because we don't want to pay rake. We have to
I
call
mean
the
the
river.
raises. Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
no,
but
I
the
would have
raise is
called it.
yeah. Oh yeah, the raise is, in my opinion, the raise is losing money.
Yeah, 100%. I didn't think of the rake thing. That's the thing. Yeah, yeah. Because such a high portion of the time, it's not really raising for value in a way because
Well,
he's
we're raising
we
for
kind of
value for a five, aren't we? We're maybe trying
yeah,
to get a
but
flush to call, but I think
yeah,
it's thin. It's really thin.
yeah,
If we're like versus when someone overbets a river and we're raising hoping someone bluff catches when most of their bluffs are just going to be complete air. Like if the bluffs here are
yeah,
going to be maybe like the random like ace 10 off with the ace of clubs that can't
yeah.
call anyway. He's
No.
polarizing. He's either saying I've got a very strong hand or I'm bluffing. When people say I've
Yeah.
got a very strong hand or I'm bluffing,
On
usually
a
just
double paired
calling.
board. Yeah. Yeah.
On any in any situation when someone's polarized themselves, unless
Yeah.
we have the absolute stone nuts, then just calling or folding can't be a bad thing.
Yeah.
And if we
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
quad
I'm with
fives
you.
here or quad queens, obviously we're going to jam. If we have quad
100%.
fives, obviously we're going to jam. But when someone's polarizing like this to say, right, I've got at least a queen, buddy, maybe even
Yeah.
better, and you can only tie with the queen, there's not really that much value in raising.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm basically, if he calls, I'm just giving them rake, basically, giving them
Yeah.
more rake. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if he'd led
No.
this river for half pot, then I would say definitely raise because in his half
Yeah.
pot sizing, he can have some flushes, he can have some
Yeah.
5x, etc. So definitely raise those hands. But versus overbet, just especially on over from a 68-8, just give it the credit it deserves. And just like this
Yeah.
player's not finding bluffs very often because he's 68
Yeah.
slash 8. When he is, I've got a hand that can beat all his bluffs. But if I raise, he only stays in with hands that probably chop or I lose to. So just
Yeah.
give a lot of respect to overbets.
Yeah. Massive error there. Damn it. Okay. Should we go to the next?
Overbet is becoming like a more and more common part of the game. But when players
Yeah.
like this do it, they're not balancing at all. They're just going to be
No.
like incredibly weighted to value with that
No.
maybe the occasional spewy bluff.
Because
But
they
it's
don't
just going to
tend
be
to top
so
up, do
value
they? Yeah.
heavy. It's just not worth to me. It's not worth thinking about racing versus this player type when they overbet
Yeah.
the river.
You were definitely right. 100%. Right. Now, remind me, is it this button here?
Yep.
Okay. Let's hope that was a good start, wasn't it? Let's see
Well,
what this
it was
one's
a
like.
fun hand. We can't win them all,
Yeah.
can we?
No, that's true. Right.
Okay.
It's on me. I'm in the big blind. I presume I checked.
I would
That's what I
certainly
would
hope
do now.
so.
Yeah. Okay. How this better get interesting. um, I've got top here. Not much of a kicker. I think I should bet
Why?
because I can get called by worse.
Mm.
Um, I can if I get raised, I would have to reevaluate and probably fold. But I think I can get called by worse hands, and I could get called by draws. There's lots of straight draws, lots of flush draws, and there's two. They might even have pocket pairs that are worse than my jack. I don't think they've got over pairs. Although, let's see who we're up against. Well, maybe he could, but I think there's lots of. If I balanced with the hands that can call me, there are much more worse hands than Jack 8 than um I think if I get called, I'm ahead of their range basically. Um and I don't see any need to give them a free card.
Okie dokie. I can't argue with any of the points you've made, but I'm still going to say I don't think this is a particularly good bet. We have our hand right now, top pair. Yeah, great, good for us. Shit kicker. On top of
Yeah.
that, like this board can change so dramatically. How often do you think that our Jack 8 is still going to be the best hand at the river?
Um I would against two opponents actually, or I'm guessing here, I haven't looked up, but I would guess about 40% of the time. Maybe it depends I
I
don't
would
know
say
what.
less, to be honest.
Oh
This
really?
pot can
Okay.
just change so dramatically. It's like, do we really want to start building a pot with a hand that by the river is very likely going to be quite fucking miserable looking?
Mm.
Why do we
Okay,
want to
yeah.
build a pot right at the minute again? And this is you, not just you. I'm saying you, but the royal you, we, whatever.
It's
It's
okay, yeah,
just
I don't
like
mind.
we're trying to
Yeah.
protect a hand that's not fucking really worth protecting. We've got a
And
top pair and a
yeah,
shitty kicker. Um, on a board that's going to change dramatically, and we're just going to struggle to defend it. You know, like we bet this flop, and then one or the other player calls, or maybe both call. Like, what turn do we want to see? We don't want to see a green one. We don't want to see a 5. We don't want to see a 6. We don't want to see a 7. We don't want to see
What?
a 9. We don't want to see a fucking 10. We don't want to
Even one
see
of the
a
aces
queen,
club.
a king, an ace.
Yeah.
We don't want to see a 3. Fucking hell. They're like 2/3 of the deck we don't want to see. So why on earth do we want to build a pot with top pair shitty kicker in a limped pot where, like, basically 2/3 of the deck on the turn makes us want to put no more money in?
And
So
I've
now you
just
want to
got
start
something
building a
else.
pot
Yeah.
just to protect a miserable top pair.
Yeah.
Not for
And
me.
also, actually, a large part of the calling range does beat me. Jack 9, Jack 10, Jack Queen. Um, yeah, I agree with you actually. And the other thing I've just thought of, which is again with because I wouldn't have even played this hand. It's just because it's linked to me, isn't
Yeah,
it?
of course, yeah, yeah.
And I've not thought about this post flop, but really, I'm chucking more raking, aren't I now?
Well, don't
With
get too obsessed
yeah,
with the rake because we still
yeah.
need to make good value bets and etc. Don't let that like get whether to the point where I mean, I'm already aware that I'm probably going to turn you into a fucking nit because that's typically what I do with most of the people I work with.
So
Because
makes money.
genuinely, I think for most of us who aren't particularly well studied and are relatively recreational, I think just playing tight's the best way. I
Yeah,
really do.
in these
It's
games
much less
especially.
fun,
Yeah,
but it's more fun than redepositing once every month or so.
yeah, yeah.
And now and again we get to hit the withdraw button. So I mean, all those things are nice, and it's more fun than look at me. I'm playing all these fucking hands, and I'm having a lot of fun, but I'm reloading all the time. Um,
Uh-huh.
so I do typically make most players play more tightly, but I think there's a good reason for that. But the rake isn't. It's a big factor, but it should never be a factor that stops you. But say you had like I don't know, a stronger hand in this, an ace jack or a king jack or something like that, that can hold its value, a bit
Mm.
better. Or say we had like a set or something, we'd flop a set of sixes. I'd be like, yeah, blast away, fuck the rake, just blast. Um,
Yeah.
so like the rake is not the rake should be a factor pre-flop more than post-flop. And if you make some sort of hand post-flop, you just got to try and play your hand as best as you can.
Okay.
Sometimes betting, sometimes raising, sometimes calling, all the things. You just got to try and make the best decision you can every time the
Mhm.
action's on you. But
I
it's
got you.
pre-flop where the rate needs to be factored in. Because I think like a lot of the range charts that we see, they basically the lowest they go is 25 and L in like a reasonable rate structure, whereas this is 10 and L in a very unreasonable rate structure. So you should be playing tighter than any rate structure you've ever looked at because just the rates are so high you have to. And again, that
Yeah.
is not popular advice. People don't like that. People are like fuck off, Reg. And there's really good players who can play like quite a high VPIP and still do okay in these games. With all due respect, you haven't really proved that yet. So,
No.
you know, to me, play tight until you prove yourself to be a consistent winner and then start adding some more hands to your range. But let's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
get you winning consistently first, playing tight,
Hmm.
winning consistently, and then you can start to like expand your range. There's no good expanding your range pre-flop if the rake and your like lack of skill and experience post-flop is just going to make a lot of your opens negative EV.
Yeah.
And that's what they will be at the moment, I'm afraid. And we've gone off on a tangent here, but to get back
Don't
to this
worry.
hand now, I don't think our hand is strong enough to bet. I don't think it's going
No
to
worries.
retain like if we are ahead now, it won't be by much versus hands that are calling us. And by the
Mhm.
river, if we like bet this and then bet again on the turn, say the turn to deuce, we bet again. By the river, like
Mhm.
we're gonna be left with a pretty miserable hand.
Yeah.
Because quite often the board's going to change, and even if it doesn't, even if this runs out deuce on the turn, deuce on the river, something like that, and that the safest run out imaginable, still not guaranteed to the best hand.
Yeah.
We could still lose to some things. So I think this hand
Jack
isn't.
and a better kicker, isn't it?
Yeah,
But it's
yeah,
quite a
yeah.
big part of his range. Yeah, yeah.
I think this is
A check.
it's too thin to start
Okay.
betting now because if this checks through and the turn to deuce, by all means start betting. We can then bet twice comfortably for value.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Okay.
we don't want to start building a pot this early with such a crummy hand, in my opinion.
Okay.
Oh, we've gone
Okay.
full pot as well. So this
Yeah.
is you definitely trying to dissuade people from drawing against you.
Yeah, yeah. Telling them
That's
to
what
F
that's
off,
what's happening
basically.
here.
Yeah.
Because we're
Which is why,
polarizing. We bet a big bet. So even though it's
yeah,
only three big blinds, so it's relatively
yeah.
small in like a number of big blinds, we bet 100%. We bet the pot. So we're way over repping our hand here. Way
No,
over
no.
repping
Yeah,
our
I'm
hand.
with you.
We've kind of
No, I
gone
agree.
polar with a really
With
mediocre
the
hand.
middle of a range, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Right. He calls. I actually, after thinking this through and talking it through, I actually think
There's one of those
he
pesky
is,
turn cards that stops us from being able to bet again.
you know, it's on me, right?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I actually think my size in there, after talking that through with you, his call, any value that he's called with, actually, with my three, I think is ahead of me now.
Not necessarily, because he can have eight now. I mean, he's 42, so
Yeah, but
he's
that's what I mean. But its value, its draws I'm ahead of. But I don't think he would call me with less than Jack 8.
oh,
That's
he
right.
would.
Oh,
He'd call
42.
6x, he'd call 7x, he'd call
Okay.
pocket fives, he'd call pocket nines. The problem is like is the issue. The problem is that
It
the
made it
further out,
murky.
when he does
Yeah.
call, like say we get to this turn now, and even if it was a deuce, you're like right, okay, well, do a bet again,
No
because we
chance.
just
Yeah.
end up keep putting his hand through a filter. So he might call his flop with pocket fives, but then if we bet the turn, he's more likely to fold it than call with it. So then when we bet again and he calls again, that's when we're in trouble. And that's why this hand makes a miserable bet on the flop. He's not going to be able to bet multiple streets, and quite
No.
often by the river, it's actual absolute hand strength and its relative hand strength is going to be really weak, which is why I don't
Mhm.
like building the pot. Now
So
we just
I'm
have a trivial
check.
check.
Easy peasy. Yeah. And he checks back. Right. So let's go on me. Okay. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry, mate.
No, no, it's fine. I think we have a bet. I think overbet's
Yeah.
too strong. Again, you're polarizing here. You're saying I've got a flush, I've got a straight, I've got a
Mm,
set, and you haven't got any of those things. You've got a miserable two
no.
pair. Like our overbets here should be nut flushes, maybe second nut flushes, maybe even third nut flushes. Who knows? There should be flushes
Mm,
and no, not even straights. I think even straights need to go less than pot. So if we're going less than pot with a straight, if we've got say 10-9 here, so we've got the nut straight, and we're going less than pot with 10-9, which we should do, we have absolutely no business whatsoever
Jackson. Yeah.
overbetting two pairs. Now, who knows? This guy might be terrible, and he might call us with Jack 10 here because he might just stink and not care. But like so, this bet we might bet he might still call us with a worse hand because he's not a good player. But when we're
Mm-hmm.
overbetting rivers, remember what we're doing. We're polarizing. We're saying when we overbet, we're saying we've got a very good hand, or we've got a bluff. So our bluff C would maybe be the naked ace of spade, naked ace of clubs. Say we
Yeah.
bet this flop with I don't fucking know what with. Just
Ace queen off
backdoors.
or something
Say
with it.
ace 10 off with the ace of clubs, something like that. Ace
Yeah.
queen, no, with ace queen would raise pre. I can't think I would have the naked ace of clubs in this line, but somehow where our bluffs are going to be like a naked ace of clubs, you would imagine.
Mm.
Or maybe something with a 10 in it because we block like straights both ways. Um, but yeah, this is just not an overbet, sir. It's a value bet for certain. Um, I would be with this exact hand. I'd be probably 2/3 pot. With a straight, I'd probably be a little bit bigger, and with flushes, I'd be pot or over bet.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be super exploitable, but we're kind of just figuring out how much equity do we have when we're called here. When we've got the nuts, we have 100% equity, so we can go as big as we fucking want. No, it doesn't matter. Just go all in if you want. Doesn't matter because when you get called, you're always winning the pot. When you've got like second and third nuts, maybe still over bet because a load of hands are 42 to 3 can call you with. When you've got a straight, you need to then be getting called by sets and two pairs.
Yeah.
And then when you've got two pair, you need to be getting called by worst two pairs that somehow check back the
She
turn.
can
So
have, yeah.
maybe he's got a hand like 7-8 or 6-8. So
That's what I would, yeah.
but he's not going to. Maybe he's even going to call some larger bets with them, but it's just too thin in my book. I would be going around 6 blinds here with that hand, maybe even smaller.
Okay. I think with this hand, this is obviously on the shit list. I've got I've got a thing where we've got to be tighter when I just end up in these limp pots. I think I'm a bit of a bugger for doing this. I don't think I do it that often, especially when I've got four tables running. But say, for example, two of them get a bit crap and I come off them because there's not either it's gone down to me being heads up and I've stopped playing them when they get like that. I just leave. I'd rather play a full table with a couple of V pips like this. And I think I've got it's good that we this hand has come up because I think sometimes if I've just got two tables playing, this is a bit kind of almost like a bit of boredom. Do you know what I mean? And I need to be a bit um.
You know, boredom
I've
should
got
make
not.
boredom might make you play more hands
That's
pre-flop.
what
It
I
might make
mean.
you widen your
I've
ranges,
limped
but
in it.
boredom doesn't make you overbet hands that shouldn't overbet.
No, that's true. I don't know if I've. It's my. It's something
Yeah, this isn't
that
like
I've
you're
got.
trying to
It's
like
not
link
boredom.
boredom to this mistake, and I get
No.
boredom can be a big factor. I get that,
Yeah.
and but what boredom does, it leads us to
Frustration
chase
is a
draws
better.
more. You play more hands
Frustration.
pre-flop. Leads us to like just be more,
I think
just
I've.
play more hands, chase more draws, do more
Yeah.
things. This isn't a boredom. This is just you misunderstanding the theory behind overbetting. And when we're overbetting, we're polarizing. We're
It's just
basically when we're
overvalued it.
polarizing, we're up in nuts and bluffs, and this is neither. So it doesn't fall into an overbet category.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just a mistake of
Yeah. So
I've,
a good
I've
thing to,
misvalued my hand. Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think we've talked about this, but it might have been Sam that talked with it about. I get confused who other people have spoken to. But in case we haven't spoken about this, before you make a bet on the river, you need to like think about the strength of your hand. How much equity do you have, and how much your
Yeah.
equity do you have versus a range that's calling, and
Mm.
then that's going to
I-
it
That's
helps
not
you
what I
make
did.
more appropriately sized bets. You know, so if you
Yeah.
had the nuts, if you had like ace queen of clubs or ace three of clubs, something that checks the flop and gets here this
Yeah.
way, then you can be like, oh, tell you what, mate, 15 big blinds to go. I've got the nuts and I don't give a fuck. Well, technically we haven't because 10-9 is clubs is the nuts, but we've got the virtual nuts, so let's fucking go.
Mm.
You know, when you've got a hand like Queen 10 of clubs, right, okay, maybe we just want to bet full pot. When you've
Yeah.
got 10-9 without a club or 10, just a 10-9 straight, maybe you want to bet full pot again. Maybe you want to go just smaller than pot. And like just gradually, and it might be exploitable in terms of like, oh, this guy is just betting the strength of his hand on the river. And it is exploitable to an extent, but you're playing the micro stakes. You ain't getting exploited for that shit. You're just
No,
not,
no. Yeah, I
you
understand.
know.
I
If you
think
got a, if
what
you think you got a hand that's going to get called a lot and you're going to win a lot, fucking make a huge bet. If you've got a hand that's going to get called a lot and maybe win not as frequently, then just make a smaller bet. It's really that simple.
yeah. I think like yeah, I've made I'm trying to figure out why I've done this. I think when I checked the turn and he checked back and then I made two pair, I was pretty sure I was ahead, even though he can have a flush. And I
No, I
suppose it's
agree.
quite enough.
I
I
agree.
suppose he, yeah.
There's a good chance you are ahead, but you're less chance of being ahead when you overbet and he calls. That's the point I'm making. If you
Yeah,
bet
no, no,
one
I
blind
understand. Yeah,
here,
yeah.
just if, for example, you bet one blind here to use a really extreme. You get one blind here, he calls, you always win. Literally always win. When
Mm.
you go all in and he calls, you win way less frequently. And it's just finding that bit in between of where does my hand fit in my sizings here. And that's the
Yeah,
bit, in my opinion, you've got wrong.
it's not wrong. But yeah, I butchered it. I've kind of thought around the lines of when I check back the turn, two pair is at the top of my range now, so I'm going to get big, and that's the wrong way to think about
Well,
it.
it's not
Yeah.
top of your range because what's stopping you having ace three of clubs here?
Well, I think I would have bet that on the turn,
Okay, right, no problem.
so that's why I kind of took
Um,
it out. I think if I had ace three of clubs on the turn, and this would be my thought process, which I hopefully isn't. Oh, it could be wrong. When a king comes, so that could be scary for him. I've got ace high, so I feel like I can build a pot, or well, I'm going to bet. Say if I had ace three of clubs, I'm going to bet it, on the flop. I think. Oh no, actually no, I wouldn't. Maybe I don't think I would have betted on the flop. So no, I don't think I can have it.
I just think I get what you see saying that odds improved, and you are close. I guess you are a little bit close to top of range because I agree a lot of your flush draws are going to keep
Yeah.
barreling.
Let's say,
Um,
for example, I
but
had
just
ace
because you're
jack.
top of range, it doesn't mean you get to overbet.
Yeah, and that's my mistake. Yeah. You know, and that's well, I don't. I think overbetting it is a is a mistake, but I think I shouldn't have even bet pot. Do you know what I mean?
No,
I
I
because
wouldn't have bet pot. I'd have been like
yeah,
in
yeah.
the,
No,
I'd
that's
have been
right, and
5 to 6 blinds here.
that's what my mistake is. I'm going through it now. I'm trying to think what I thought at the time, and I think at the time I thought Jack eight. I thought it looks like I've got a Jack. So when I bet now, um, he's going to think I've probably got a Jack, or I could have a flush, obviously. But or he's definitely going to put Jacks in my range when he's looking at me. But obviously, by betting really big, I'm not saying I have a Jack.
No,
I'm saying
I've
I've
got
got a
much better than
flush.
a jack. Yeah, I've got a
Yeah,
flush.
and that's where I've messed up. Yeah.
So
I
therefore,
understand.
all of a sudden, he shouldn't call here with Jack 10 anymore. If you bet half
Yeah.
pot, he should call Jack 10. When you
So,
bet
which is
over
what I
bet, he
want him
should
to
fold
call with,
Jack
isn't
10.
it?
Yeah.
So I wanted him to call me with a Jack, basically,
Yeah, you want him to call with Ace
and
7.
I
You want him to
bet.
call with Jack 10, Jack 9. All those.
Yeah,
You want him to
no,
call with all these like weak, some of his weak bluff catchers to
yeah,
get to
which
the
is what
river
I
this
thought he
way.
had. Yeah. And I've basically made bet two bit. Yeah,
Yeah, you bet too big. Well,
yeah,
let's move along because I think we've done this one to
yeah.
death now.
No,
Let's look at
sorry,
the
mate.
next
I
time.
was
Let's see
just
the
trying to
result.
work out
No,
why
no,
I'd
it's
done it.
fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. I'm looking at the clock. We're at 46 minutes, and I know you've got more hands to look at. So let's see
Right.
what he does.
That's the mistake I've made there. And that was cool. And he called me with. I got there basically.
Well, there
I
you
mean,
go. We just spent 15 minutes, and
no,
then
but
he's
you
called
were
us with a
right.
fucking worse hand.
Yeah, Matt. What you
Oh
said on the
well.
flop was right, wasn't it? I bet three, but do you know what I mean? I think everything you said was definitely right. I've just got lucky,
Yeah,
basically.
you've got lucky that you found somewhere who's
Yeah.
just
No,
like
no. It
not
was, it
not
was,
folding. Yeah.
it was really valuable though, talking to me talking through that over bet on the river because I know why I did it. I just had to think through why I did it, and I know why I did it now. I can remember my thought process at the time. I improved, and I didn't. Yeah. Anyway, we've done it.
Well, you won the pot. That's nice. I'm glad that you made a mistake and it worked out. But yeah, just
That was nice.
the learning from that is just like when you well any situation when you're betting, you estimate your equity versus the calling range, and then the greater you think your equity is versus their calling range, the bigger you can bet. It's really as simple as that.
Yeah. No, I definitely know I made a mistake there. Right. Should we move on to this one?
Absolutely.
Right. Three-handed. The action's on me. I've got ace nine off against 26. Oh, this isn't a good table, really, is it?
No. Well,
Uh,
the thing is,
right. Yeah.
there'll be lots of people who sit there playing in tougher games like the start right that, and you and I at that table shit. We've already got a
Yeah.
35v pip at the table and a 29
Yeah.
26. What a shit table.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. There's better tables to be had than this. But yeah, it's fine. No, I wouldn't leave. I wouldn't leave this table because I've
Okay.
got a 29-6 who's basically an empty chair, and I've
Yeah.
got a 35-15 who's clearly a fish, but on the tighter side for these games. It's not a great table, but it's not a stand up and find a better one either. It's just grind it out and hope the two seats fill with a couple of more fish.
Okay. So I presume I open because we're playing this hand. I've
I
got
would
ace
hope so.
nine off. Okay. Get a caller and a fold. We've got top pair, top kicker.
Right, just for a second before we start, just so I can familiarise myself with this player, can you click on his HUD a minute and can I see
Yeah.
what his cold call out the small blind is? I get it, it's a small sample, but nevertheless, can we have a
I move
look?
this up the way. Sorry, mate. I, I keep using
That's
the
okay.
touchpad.
Right click on it and you can drag it.
All good? Can you see?
Okay,
Oh no, you
right.
can't see it, can you?
I can see you only half of it. Right click on the thing, bring it open again. Now
Definitely.
that yeah, that's better. And now I want to see. Just click pre-flop. Cold call any bet. So from the small blind, right, okay, never mind. That's total waste. Sorry, wasted your time there. It's 0 from 0. So we know nothing about him. But typically, like the small blind call versus an open isn't indicative of a particularly strong hand.
Yeah.
Which is what I just wanted to know if that was something you. I suspected this is something that he's doing quite a lot because he's playing 26-6, which means he's not three betting very often. Which
No.
means he maybe gonna have some slightly stronger than average hand in his flat in range. Like if he's not three betting very often from the small blind, for example, he can
Mhm.
have pocket jacks here, pocket tens. He can have ace queen. Who knows? He can maybe even still have ace king.
Okay.
There's loads of strong hands this guy can have when he's flat in range, and that's what I was trying to establish. And again, people watching this, like, what are you fucking talking about, Reg? Nobody flats. Ace king, ace queen, pocket jacks from the small blind, etc. People playing 26-6 with a 2% 3 bet fucking do. They absolutely do have pocket queens, pocket jacks, pocket tens, ace queen in their
Yeah.
small blind flat in range. So, fair enough. And it's not me being paranoid, it's just me accurately reflecting the state of the games
Experience.
we're
Yeah.
playing in and this player
Yeah. Yeah.
type. So we get to this flop, and even though we have top pair, top kicker, it's a good flop for us. We should be pleased with our hand. We do have to bear in mind against this player, when we start building a pot, it's a little bit thinner because this guy absolutely has pocket tens, pocket jacks, pocket queens, etc. in his range. So it's going to be that little bit thinner. And that's not to say we shouldn't bet our hand, because of course we should. But we just need to be a bit more wary about building pots against this player type with like some of our weaker made hands, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm just putting that note of caution out there already. I'm presuming he's
No,
going to
no,
check
it's
to
good.
us, and I'm presuming we're going to see bet, and that's all
Yes.
completely normal. But we just need to be aware that it is thinner against this player type because of their the extra strength in their range, because they're not three betting correctly. Like against
Okay.
a normal opponent here, we can be like, oh well, he doesn't have tens very often, he doesn't have jacks, he doesn't have queens. We can rule all them hands out. You absolutely cannot rule them out. Now they're not a huge part of his range, but they're in there with him when they're not in there with other people, and I think that's a point that's worth making.
Yeah. No, no, I'm with you. I'm with you. Right. Shall I see what I did? I'm sure
Yep.
I bet. I'm gonna guess I bet about 2/3 pot.
Yeah, I think when we're C betting versus small blind, we can just go quite a lot bigger.
Yeah. Bigger than
Especially in
this
this
or
board. Against big blind here, I wouldn't want to go necessarily. I might even check this flop sometimes. I wouldn't necessarily want to go this big, because big blind theoretically can have more 4-3. It can have more like the weaker
ah,
flush draws, etc. So against big blind, I think we probably don't want to bet this big. Maybe sometimes we want to check. I think versus small blind here, whose range is going to be overwhelmingly like small to medium pocket pairs. This is allowing for the things we've already said about this guy. He's going to have a lot of
yeah.
deuces. Obviously threes and fours too, fives, sixes, sevens, eights. He's going to have some king queens, jack tens, ace jacks, all those things. So I think we can just like, I don't mind going bigger versus small blind. I think versus big blind though, that range should be theoretically quite different, and I wouldn't want to go big against that on this board. I would probably want to do quite a bit of checking back actually. I think. Same theory as before. Like, even though we have a relatively good hand, like, how often is our hand going to be like really quite strong by the river? Right now we've got top pair, top kicker in a
Oh,
single
less.
race
Yeah,
pot,
less than
and there's not much money
50%.
in the
So
pot, so we quite like our hand. But if this would just say this, and it's going off topic wildly, but to against a point that's really important to make to you and anyone who's watching who doesn't really understand how these spots work. Like top pair, top kicker is a relatively good hand at this point in time. But by the river, if money keeps going in, it gets progressively and progressively weaker against the range that's calling you. So again, we don't want to
yeah.
be in a huge rush to be building a big pot here, just because we've got top pair, top kicker. Because by the river, against ranges that are calling us, it's going to get weaker and weaker quite quickly. And by the river, quite often, it's going to be behind the range of the person who's been calling.
Is that more the case on this board as well?
Not
Because
necessarily
of
just
the
on wet boards in
even
general.
on a even on a dry board, would
Like,
you
it's
would
something
you
I've been
be?
studying quite a bit lately,
Yeah.
because you get loads of these spots in these games, and we just don't want to be like making too many big bets on relatively coordinated boards with marginal hands like this. Because
Yeah.
even if we had like a set of threes here, like which is a really strong. It's a nutted hand. The nuts changes so often on this board. Set of nines even, which is the absolute nuts right now. This board's going to change turn. Maybe it's going to change river. Maybe this board's going to change twice. Maybe the turn's going to be an ace. It's going to be a deuce. It's going to be a five. It's going to be a six. So the nuts has changed. Then maybe the river of spade comes too. So all of a sudden your top set is now losing to straights and flushes, whereas now it's losing to nothing. But
Yeah.
in two, it could come like a deuce on the turn, and um, and a spade on the river, and all of a sudden you still got a very strong hand with your set of nines, but it's no longer, it's quite a long way from being the nuts anymore because it loses to straights and flushes. So it's just
Yeah.
important that we don't get carried away building pots too early on these wet boards. We kind of want to just like keep the pot a little bit smaller early on, and then on like decent run outs, just try and make some like decent value on the river. Because it's a disaster here if we say bet pot with a set of nines, they call turns brings a potential straight card. Say it's like a seven or a six. So we lose to like some straights we lose to now. We bet they call again. Then the river say the deuce of spades. All of a sudden we lose to wheels. We lose to spades. We lose
Yeah. Yeah.
to like 6-5. There's
Yeah.
loads and loads of things we're going to lose to. So you just want to be careful about like with hands that are nutted on the flop on these wet boards. Don't go mad piling too much money in too early. Because the
No.
boards change so often, and quite often a hand that on the flops really, really nutted ends up being relatively mediocre by the river. And again, that's not
Yeah.
me trying to make everyone super nitty, but we don't really want to start like building big pots on this board very often.
Oh,
With especially with a hand like this, especially.
you might have a crystal ball, Reg, when you see what happens. Let's see. Shall we?
Oh, can we just confirm, by the way, in case, because you just give me a spoiler that this hand might not work out well. I have not seen any of these hands before
Oh,
doing
you
this, have I
haven't
not?
seen any. I
No.
can't. I think I know what happens in this hand. I
Right,
can't remember.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, I know you haven't seen any of them. Yeah, yeah. Right. Okay. So I'm going to keep going and then see what he does. And I'm not going to click too far. Right.
Check.
He checks
Now
now.
this is a problem we've just been talking about because I kind of like
100%.
instinctively, I'm like, oh, protect, protect, protect. But again, what protection are we going to get? We know he's not folding a flush draw. He might now have some two pairs. He shouldn't have two pairs, but who knows? He's shit. He could definitely have some sets.
Yeah.
He could definitely still have some over pairs. He can have like tens and jacks still. To me, this is a slam dunk check back. We do not want this pot getting any bigger. If we bet any raises, we have to fold. If we bet any calls, we're probably going to have to check back nearly on the rivers. Again, we've got like 16 bigs in this pot now against a relatively like weak type player. I'm My spider senses are just kind of like right. Let's just deploy a bit of pot control here.
Right. I can remember my thought process, I think. I can remember thinking when he checked, I would
Hello,
my
still? Oh,
yeah,
sorry,
I'm still
fella. I
here.
thought
Yeah,
I'd lost you for a minute. Sorry,
no,
mate. Go
no.
on.
Let me just adjust my headset. Sorry. Um, my plan was to bet if he called and the river was a brick. Well, I had half a plan of checking back the river in mind, depending what the run out was. Um, and I know I just think it's a mistake.
I don't think it's
Um,
terrible. Like with a plan to like check back all rivers, not the worst plan. It's not the worst plan at all. I can get on
right,
board with it.
right,
Um,
yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah,
okay,
don't beat yourself up too much. I mean, I personally would pot control here, but I could get on board with like, right, well, okay, I'm going to just bet like 10
mhm,
bigs, and then there's not a single river I'm betting apart from
yeah,
maybe a repeat nine or an
yeah,
ace. So yeah, I don't have an issue with that. Like get value from draws still now, and then draws can't call rivers to check back. So don't beat yourself up too much. I don't hate betting here. Personally, I think we should maybe think about pumping the brakes a
mhm,
little bit. But I think we probably have like one more street of value in our hand
mhm.
on a lot of maybe if the river's a brick, we get one more street there. Maybe now
That's
we
what
think
I
if
was
this guy's
thinking.
like
Yeah,
particularly draw heavy, we try and get the street of value from a draw now. So yeah, I have no
yeah.
issue with you betting
That
here.
that was my
Um,
thought process.
yeah,
That yeah, I could get his draws would call me now. But yeah, I don't like it. Uh,
I don't
let's
hate
see
it.
what
Don't let's
happens.
not be too harsh. I don't hate it. I just think we need to be a little bit careful. We certainly don't have a three street hand unless a river's a
No,
very specific card.
no. So let's see what happens. That's too big, is it? I don't know.
I knew you were going to
Two
say
thirds
that.
again.
Not really. If your plan here is I want to get
The
called by
check back.
draws, then he's going to
Yeah,
call this with a draw, isn't he? We don't
yeah.
expect this player to raise us very often with a draw. So if he does raise, we just fold our hand because we're just going to be beat by a 29-6 who check raises his turn way too often. So no, I don't hate this at all. If we're going to bet, then we.
My yeah.
Hang on, sorry,
I,
mate.
I was thinking flush draws are going to call me, straight draws are going to call me, and if he's got
Hang
something
on, what
like a
straight
five,
draws? Tell me what straight draws.
well, say if he had that have made a pair now, things like 5-6, 7-6, they would call me. I would think,
Yeah, fair
or would
enough.
they not?
No, no,
Um,
they probably would. I just don't think he's got many straight draws. That's my issue. He has called out the small blind when all said and done.
so did you not think he would? Okay, so really not many straight draws, but the flush draws
Well,
would
maybe
call.
who knows? Maybe he's got like a 7-6 suited type hand. That's definitely not
Yeah.
folding. They can
Uh,
float the flop 5
uh,
6, yeah. But if he is the sort of player who's like routinely defending all of those hands, then he's going to have a higher VPIP than 26. That's my problem.
okay,
Because he's
yeah.
only
Oh,
26-6, then
yeah,
does
yeah.
he
No,
really
I'm with
have
you.
like the 5 6s, the 6 7s in his small blind flatting range? Because that type of player that does that,
Mm,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
probably also has a lot of other hands in their range, and their VPIP just ends up being higher than 26. But I could be wrong. But yeah, I think flush draws definitely. Some straight draws definitely. Uh, so I don't hate betting here to try and get value from draws before it's too late because we don't expect this player to bluff the river with a missed draw. So I don't hate this at all. So yeah, do not beat yourself up too much. I don't want you thinking like, oh, Red just said something, so anything I do that isn't the same as that must be shit.
Oh, yeah.
There's a
No,
there's a decent case for betting this turn to charge draws against this player type, and there's a decent case for using the size you've used. I wouldn't have done it, but that doesn't mean to say there isn't a good case to be made for it.
okay. Should we see what
Yep,
happens?
let's move it along.
He calls. Right, I'm going to make sure I don't click too far. A six appears. He bets 40.
Oh
Right. Now,
dear.
let me tell you. This is the other. I was looking for a hand before we started recording. It was very similar to this. Um, I I think I'm losing now because we've said I haven't got a three street hand. My immediate thought was 5-6, 7-6 got there. Um, and he's basically bet pot, which is um
I think if he's got a value hand here, I think he's stronger than Trips. I think he's got like pocket fours, pocket threes, a decent
or
amount
six,
too.
yeah, or 6-4 maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, this to me, this is him, in my opinion and in my experience, saying he's got a missed flush draw and he's got full houses. I'd
Okay.
be surprised to see. I mean, don't get me wrong, Trip Six is a very strong hand here. So maybe he does have trip sixes, but quite a bit needs to have happened on trip sixes. He needs to have like called a hand like 5-6 pre-flop or 7-6. He then needs to have called the flop with it, and then he needs to have hit fucking perfect. That's a lot of things that need to have happened. Whereas he could just have called pre-flop with pocket threes, and then
Yeah,
just decided to take this line or pocket fours or
yeah.
what have you. Um, the
I
question
think
is,
I
go on, mate. Sorry.
yeah. I think I don't fold in these spots enough. And I think with just talking about myself now, I often bet I've what since we've been doing these hands, I've noticed that when I've got a hand with this sort of value, I like to bet the turn to keep the momentum with me, if you like,
Yep.
with the plan
Which is
of
which is a
checking back
nonsense.
the
Which is
river.
nonsense, by the way. That's
No, I know.
not. That's a nonsense strategy. He's just
No.
the whole game revolves around equity. If we check back turns or we decide to bet turns, it's not because I've got the initiative, so I'm going to keep betting. It's
Yeah.
because either we think we have a significant range advantage over our opponent, or
Yeah.
we think our opponent has quite a big range advantage over us, but for some reason we think sorry, not let me repeat that. We think we've got a big range advantage over our opponents, so we just get to bet because we have a big range advantage. So it doesn't matter. We just get to bet a lot in those spots, or because we have like a relatively weak hand, but we have reason to believe our opponent's weak too. That's the reason why we want to
Yeah.
bet. We don't continue betting because of some like I've got the initiative, so I'm going to keep. That's bullshit. The whole game revolves around equity and range
Yeah.
advantages. So like momentum
Do
or initiative, no,
is
that
not.
it's not
That shouldn't.
2006 anymore. Stop that.
No, it shouldn't. Yeah. Okay.
It's just you
So
know
did I think I had the best hand on the turn? I think I did actually.
And that's fine.
Um.
We think we have the, and again, it's not just best hand; it's range. Do we have a range advantage? We do still, because we still have aces, kings, queens,
Yeah.
jacks, tens, pocket
Yeah.
nines,
Mm,
some flush draw. We have a lot of hands that want to bet. So if you think of all the hands we have that want to bet, actually, ace nine is one of our weakest hands because we have all the overpairs.
that's
We
what I
have
was
all the
gonna say.
sets.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have all the overpairs. So because we have all the sets and all the overpairs, ace nine actually becomes one of our weakest value bets, which
Yeah.
is maybe why we could pop that in a checking back range with a view to maybe calling on some safe rivers. Um, which
That's
is, but that's not necessarily means we shouldn't have bet it. But we're betting ace nine, our checking back range becomes pretty fucking weak, and it becomes
on
really
the on
vulnerable
the on the turn or the flop on the
on the
or the
turn.
rivers.
On the turn, if we bet in ace nine on the turn, and
That's the bot.
assuming we're betting
That's
all our other hands against this play, it's not going to matter. But against more thinking players, our turn checking back range is just ridiculously weak, and then we're just really vulnerable to players just like probing rivers and us having to fold a lot. If I saw somebody like c betting and double barreling this hand, whenever they check back turns against me, I would just shut my eyes and blind bet rivers because their range for getting to the river is going to be so capped and so weak
I
that they're
got
just
you.
not going
Yeah.
to be able
Yeah.
to cope with
I
it.
say I've just understood what you mean. Yeah. Yeah. So I think I should. I'm agreeing with you. And it's only since we've been talking these hands through so much, I totally think I should have checked the turn.
I think turn is a check. I don't
Yeah.
hate it
Yeah.
for the reasons you stated. And against
But
this player type, it's probably okay. Against a reg, it's probably not okay.
if yeah, this is a fold, isn't it?
I don't know.
When he
I
bets into me,
genuinely don't know because I'm thinking like there's flush draws that have missed. Um, I think it's probably a fold, yeah. Because when 26/6s go call pre small blind check call donk, they're just going to have very good hands a
mm,
lot of the time. But it's difficult because the obvious draw has missed, and also like ace deuce has missed, ace five has missed. So he's got missed draws here that he can
yeah,
definitely have, which always makes me like fucking hell. Because normally you're like, right, we're in a bluff catching spot and population don't bluff enough. That's what's happening here. But there are definitely some bluffs here that you can find. Spades and like
I haven't got a spade in my hand, do I? Which
ace
kind of,
wheels. Yeah, so
yeah,
yeah, we don't block spade. We have got an ace, which is bad because now he can't have ace five of diamonds and ace deuce of diamonds, which are two hands we'd like him to have in this spot. You can't have either of those that might probably won't not probably not very often, but might take that line. So we are blocking like two of his bluff combinations. Um, I think I probably fold here because I just don't expect this player to be bluffing enough. But we don't have the worst hand to call with. But I think probably just as a rule, against a 29, 26/6, I would just fold here because they're going to have had stuff
so
that's been trapping us and now just doesn't want the river to check through.
does
Which
that
your
mean,
plan exactly is like check back ace nine here. So
which
he
makes
doesn't
me,
want you to. If he's got
I
a value
know, I
hand,
know, I know,
he
yeah,
doesn't want you to
I
check
know.
back ace nine. So I think I would fold here. But I had like a pretty bad downswing last week when I was calling all of these and I was fucking losing nearly all of them.
Mm,
We're supposed to call some of these. We're supposed to find calls 33% of the time here. But we have just some slightly better hands to call with. Bearing in mind, this guy might still have pocket tens and pocket jacks, etc. Just pocket queens makes a better call. Pocket kings makes a better call. Pocket aces makes a better call. We've also got nines full in range. We've got fours full in range. We've got threes full in range. So we just got
Okay.
all them better hands. So do we need to call ace nine? No, because we just got more. We only need to call 33%, and we've got better hands to call with. So yeah, I think this is actually a fold.
Okay. So you think that ace nine, but aces and kings would be a call?
They've been more of a call. I'm not
Yeah.
saying I'd be in love with them, but I'd rather. But
Yeah. I
because this player can have queens, jacks, tens, etc., that might do this, then obviously kings and aces make a better call than like a nine does. I think there's a
I'm
linear
gonna
thing here. I think tens makes a better call than this. Jacks makes a slightly better call than tens, just because this guy can have those overpairs in his range.
yeah. Well, yeah. That which makes another reason why I called wrong.
I think so.
Because
Yeah,
I
I
was
think.
thinking, yeah, I was thinking when I can remember thinking this at the time. I can remember thinking, and this is such a, I can't believe I'm owning up to this on the internet, but I can remember thinking, well, if I had aces or kings, I would call. And I was not factoring in that he could have tens and jacks. I didn't think he could, but obviously we've talked that one to death, and we know. Yeah, I call, and I hated it when I did it. I think it was a big mistake.
Yeah, I
But
think it is a mistake.
yeah, and I know this is something. This is my thing this week that I want to change because I've done this more than once this week. I know I have, and I think it's something. Oh, do you want to see what he had?
Oh, fucking damn right I do.
There you go.
Yeah,
He had
and
the
again, that's like, yeah,
straight
it's
draw and
unfortunate.
straight flush draw. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I've got to stop doing that. That's something that's definitely losing me money.
Paying off large bets in any in any poker. And I'd probably I don't play higher stakes, but I imagine it's probably just as bad to do it. I watch streamers that play higher stakes. They always
Yeah.
rant and rave about how they've always fucking got it, and that's at higher stakes when people are meant to be better and they're meant to be more balanced. And I
Yeah.
watch streamers like fucking hell, these nits have always got it. So when people are just betting big on the river, just criminally overfold, just
Yeah. Yeah.
massively, massively overfold, and
Mm,
just trust that you're exploiting them.
yeah. No. I was actually thinking after I played this stand that I was thinking that aces and kings might be a fold, but I don't know because he
I
is
wouldn't.
right.
I probably wouldn't fold them. But yeah, it's close. Like have we
It's
got
not
it?
much different.
Basically,
Yeah.
the question is, have we got enough like pocket nines? And this is the part of the game I'm not very good at. Like, it's just calling with full houses here enough. Like if we call with our pocket threes, our pocket nines, our pocket fours, are we meeting the minimum defense frequency for like 33% equity? And I don't know, to be honest with you. I'm not very good at that sort of thing, and I don't know how to work it out on the fly. I mean, how many combos of that have we got? We got like three, six, nine combos of full houses. Um, and again, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going
Yeah.
with it, so I don't know, fella.
No, that's it. Yeah,
But yeah,
we
just
got
bluff catching
three
in
combos
general
of nines,
versus
three combos of
yeah,
fours, and three combos of threes, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
And then
And
there's obviously, well, we probably wouldn't play pocket sixes like this because I don't know. Yeah,
no, maybe we bet the flop with sixes sometimes. Not very often, but sometimes maybe.
definitely put the two in.
Um,
Yeah,
maybe we have 6-7 sometimes too as well. We definitely have some 6-7.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, maybe we just call with all our 6x and our full houses.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so basically, if you went through a rule of this entire week, literally never bluff catching, only ever calling when you can beat value as well as
On the
bluffs,
big on
you'd
the
probably
river.
end up doing, yeah, on the river, yeah,
Yeah,
you'd probably end up doing pretty fucking well. It's tough because it's hard to have good hands all the time. When you get to rivers,
yeah.
it's hard to have good hands, so it can be really frustrating and really annoying. But if you went through a spell of only ever calling river when you can name a value hand that you can beat, like for example here you might be like, right, well I can beat 10-9, fine. Would you take this line with 10-9? Probably not, so show up. So that's a sort of thought process. But if you had aces, and against this player, you'd be like, well, maybe I beat pocket queens, so maybe I have to call because I beat value. Like ace nine doesn't really beat much value here, whereas pocket aces does beat some value. Not much
Yeah.
difference. There really isn't much
Mm.
difference at all. But there's a tiny
Yeah.
bit of difference.
If he can have those big overpairs, yeah, there is difference.
Yeah, if he can have like
When I was thinking
tens
about
and
it, I didn't
jacks.
think, yeah, I didn't think he could, but now we've talked it through. I
Yeah, of
was
course he can. He's three betting 2%. Of course he can have those hands.
yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
2%.
yeah,
Two
yeah,
percent
no,
is
I know.
just
Yeah.
it's aces and kings. That's what it is. you know. So when people are three betting, and fair enough, you
And
can
that's
argue it's a small
176
sample
hands.
size, but these
Yeah,
people exist. I've got people in my database, regs, with over like 8,000 hands, three bet 4%.
yeah,
These people exist, and in 4% three bet, that means there's regs in the games I play, which is like one limit higher than this, that aren't three betting ace king
yeah,
at full frequency, that aren't three betting ace queen almost ever, that aren't three betting queens at full frequency, aren't
no,
three betting jacks, aren't three betting tens.
no.
So
I've
these
been
people
caught out with
exist,
that. I've been caught out with that. Yeah,
and you have to
people,
factor it in.
the
If you're
people
not
like limp.
factoring it in, then you're not doing your job, I'm afraid.
No, 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 no. I'm with you. I agree with you. Um, okie dokie. Right. Shall I move on to the next one?
Right, well, how much time have you got? Because if you've got time, we'll do the other hands in a second video.
Um,
Because this has been an hour and a quarter already, and people typically don't get all the way through hour and a quarter videos.
no, no,
So it
I'm with
depends
you.
how much time you've got. I mean, you and I can carry on
I've
looking
got
at what.
about another 45, so we could do another
Yeah,
one
we'll
on.
do another video. Right, we'll quickly end
Should we
this
do
one.
another one on the next bit on another video?
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah, we'll do. Yeah, we'll do the next.
No
We'll do
worries.
another video, and this can go out on Thursday or Friday as like a bonus episode. Right. So, thank you for watching, everybody. Take care and bye for now.